There may be an end in sight after months of turmoil on another front. New reports saying that President Trump is likely to sign the border security deal. He says he's unsatisfied with the proposal, but he said another shutdown is unlikely.
I don't think you're going to see a shutdown. I wouldn't want to go to it now. If you did have it, it's a Democrat's fault. And I accepted the first one, and I'm proud of what we've accomplished because people learned during that shutdown all about the problems coming in from the southern border. I've always accepted it.
Joining us now, Yahoo Finance's Jessica Smith with the latest from Washington. So, Jess, that's what we heard from the president yesterday. Any new developments today about this deal?
Well, White House Press Secretary Sarah Sanders spoke with reporters this morning, and she said the president is not ready to say one way or the other whether or not he will sign this bill. She says he's not fully happy with it, but there are some positive parts. She says they want to see a final text before making a decision. Lawmakers said yesterday that they expected those final details to come out at some point today, but they're still being hammered out at this point, and it looks like the discussions are focused on a few different issues at this point. An extension of the Violence Against Women Act and federal contractors getting back pay. Some Democratic lawmakers want to make sure federal contractors who are affected by the shutdown get back pay as well. So those are the details that are still being worked out, but we are waiting to hear more about if the president can support this bill.
When we talk about this and what Sarah Sanders is saying, it's important to point out that the people the president watches, Sean Hannity, actually said yesterday at the end of the day the president should sign it. Has the White House commented on the commentary the president's getting from the people he trusts most? And that's people like Sean Hannity.
You know, we haven't heard much from the White House about that. You know, the president, according to the press secretary, is just focused on this deal and what it's going to entail. But yes, we did see that last time this happened. That commentary seemed to affect what the president ended up doing. But we know there are some critics in the conservative wing who say that this is not a real attempt to secure the border. But I'd say no one wants to see another shutdown. So people here on the Hill are hopeful that they'll be able to come to an agreement and the president will sign a bill to keep the government open.
Thank you, Jess. David, I'm curious, do you think the president would dare not sign this if they send it to him?
This president? Yeah, he's the kind of person that might not sign it, but I think all the evidence points to that he is going to sign it. I think there's enough there for him to get started. And he has a lot of other tools that he can use to, build barriers, walls, whatever you want to call them. I think his base will be satisfied, even if some pundits like Ann Coulter come out and try to bash the president. I think a lot of people will come to his defense, including myself.
Well, I agree with David, and I think lately President Trump has been tweeting, and even in that address at El Paso, he basically said, hey, the wall's already being built, so he's kind of already claiming victory even before he gets this sort of latest round.
There's 700 miles of it already, so it's obviously there. In many cases, all we're doing is, repairing it.
Exactly, and I think, though, the market reaction to all this has been a bit too much, essentially, because President Trump's negotiating strategy is centered on unpredictability. So just because we think he's going to sign something doesn't mean he is. And if you go back to the week of, December 20th or so, all indications were that we would avoid a government shutdown then, and look what happened.
Well, it's been so fascinating during the Trump administration overall to see how the market has adapted or not, because we do have, I would say, more of a characteristic of this administration than in the past is that you have a lot of back and forth before the final outcome. And we react to, at least the markets seem to react to, a lot of the back and forth, not necessarily with the shutdown, but with trade.
There are some things the markets react to. They certainly react to trade because that has a long-term effect. They didn't care about the shutdown at all.
Right.
From the time the shutdown was announced to just a couple of weeks ago, the market was up 10% during the shutdown period. So obviously, it wasn't an economic event as far as stock traders were concerned. So China, obviously, that's another story. But in the end, let's be clear here. We're not negotiating with a partner. We're not negotiating with a competitor. We're negotiating with an adversary in every sense of the word. Foreign policy, trade, economically, even militarily. It's a different approach.
Does the president, we have two events on Friday, possibly the signing of the funding bill so that we don't have the shutdown, but we might have some kind of announcement out of China that we have a framework. Lighthizer and Mnuchin will be meeting with President Xi. Do you think the president, that plays into his decision making? Why would you want to upstage what might be a good announcement from China?
I think it does. I think the president knows that this bill is important to get this beyond this. Let's get beyond the shutdown. And both sides, clearly, China and the United States, we both need a deal. Certainly the president would like a win politically. The question is, what does victory look like? How do you paint this so both sides can go back to the constituents and say, hey, we got something. But Xi is there for life. And unfortunately, we think in terms of an election cycle, so that's going to shade what we get out of this. I hope we don't lose too much on intellectual property.
Even though their economy is slowing in China, President Xi can wait this out as long as he wants.